Welcome to Unfiltered Reflections. I'm your host, Passion. And today we're diving into the quiet hum of a life lived, or perhaps a life waiting to be truly lived. Have you ever felt that flicker, deep down, a whisper of a different path, a bolder stride, a more vibrant hue to your everyday? It's a feeling many of us know, a longing to step beyond the familiar, to sculpt a new version of ourselves, or to finally grasp that shimmering dream that dances just at the edge of our vision. We tell ourselves it takes ages, doesn't it? Years of relentless toil, endless sacrifice, a monastic devotion to some distant ideal. But what if that's not entirely true? What if the path to remarkable transformation, to a profound shift in your capabilities or your very being, isn't a marathon, but a series of concentrated, deliberate sprints? What if you could lay the foundation for something truly extraordinary in a surprisingly short span of time? Today, we journey into the heart of this very idea through the story of a woman named Alara, who, like many of us, found herself caught in the gentle current of routine, observing her own life from a slight distance, as if through a pane of frosted glass. Alara lived in a city that perpetually exhaled a soft, silvery mist. It clung to the cobblestones, softened the edges of ancient buildings, and diffused the streetlights into hazy halos. Her apartment, nestled on the third floor of a building that had seen generations come and go, was a sanctuary of muted tones and forgotten dreams. Dust motes danced in the slivers of sunlight that occasionally pierced the mist, illuminating the quiet rebellion of her houseplants, their leaves reaching tentatively towards the light. Alara worked as an archivist in the city's oldest library, a place where the scent of aged paper and leather was a constant, comforting presence. Her days were spent carefully cataloging forgotten histories, handling fragile documents that whispered tales of lives long past. She loved the silence, the order, the feeling of being a guardian of stories. But outside the library's hallowed halls, her own story felt unwritten. She had always harbored a secret yearning, a vibrant, almost luminous desire that she kept tucked away like a precious, delicate bird in a cage. It was the desire to paint. Not just to dabble, not just to sketch, but to truly paint. To translate the swirling mists of her city, the quiet resilience of her plants, the unspoken narratives she encountered daily onto canvas. She imagined bold strokes, vivid colors, textures that invited touch. But the thought of starting, of truly committing, felt like standing at the foot of an insurmountable mountain. Where would she even begin? The sheer volume of knowledge, the years of practice, the innate talent she felt she lacked, it all coalesced into a formidable barrier. She'd sigh, run a hand over a dusty tome, and tell herself, one day, when I have more time, when I'm ready. But one day stretched into weeks, then months, then years, a phantom promise that never materialized. One particularly misty Tuesday, as Alara was meticulously cross-referencing a collection of ancient maps, a peculiar book caught her eye. It wasn't particularly old or ornate, but its cover, a deep indigo, seemed to shimmer with an inner light. The title was simply The Alchemist's Primer for the Modern Soul. Intrigued by its whimsical nature, so unlike the serious historical texts she usually handled, she pulled it from the shelf. Inside, the pages were filled with elegant script and intricate, almost magical, illustrations. It wasn't a book about spells or potions, but about a different kind of alchemy, the transformation of intention into reality. One chapter, in particular, seemed to pulse with a quiet energy, almost as if it were written just for her. It spoke of a concentrated effort, a focused burst of dedication, a period so intense yet manageable that it could unlock surprising levels of proficiency in any endeavor. It suggested that the initial push, the first concentrated immersion, held a disproportionate power. That in this initial concentrated period, the mind, unburdened by the weight of years of expectation, could absorb and synthesize information at an accelerated rate, laying down neural pathways with remarkable speed. It called this period the incubation. The book proposed a framework, almost a ritual, for this incubation. It wasn't about mastering something entirely, but about achieving a foundational fluency, a comfortable competence that would allow one to continue the journey with confidence rather than trepidation. It outlined 5 crucial steps, each presented as a riddle, a gentle nudge towards self-discovery. The first riddle read, "Before the seed can sprout, know its name and its nature." What verdant dream do you wish to cultivate? This, Alara understood, was about clarity. She closed her eyes and saw it instantly. The vibrant, almost liquid hues of oil paint, the tactile sensation of brush on canvas, the smell of turpentine. Her dream was to paint the soul of her misty city. She didn't just want to learn to paint. She wanted to capture the ephemeral beauty that surrounded her, to render visible the unspoken poetry of her world. This desire, she realized, was specific, deeply personal, and within the realm of possibility. She wouldn't aim to be a master overnight, but to be able to express herself, to communicate her inner landscape through art. The second riddle was more practical. The river carves its path not by force, but by persistent flow. How will you divide your journey into navigable currents? Alara imagined her painting journey as a vast ocean. To cross it, she couldn't just jump in and hope for the best. She needed stepping stones, islands of progress. She decided to break down the intimidating act of painting into smaller, less daunting tasks. First, color theory. Then, understanding light and shadow. Next, basic composition. Then, brush techniques. Each a small island, a manageable current to navigate. She even created a rudimentary timeline in her head, mentally assigning a few days to each island. The third riddle whispered, "The artisan gathers her tools, not just the hammer and chisel, but the wisdom of those who have carved before. What resources will guide your hand?" This resonated deeply with her archivist's soul. She knew the power of accumulated knowledge. She began to seek out resources, online tutorials, art history books, even a dusty old painting manual she found hidden in the library's forgotten corner. She realized her strengths lay in observation and meticulous research. She'd use these to dissect the techniques of painters she admired, to understand how they achieved their effects. She also understood the importance of routine. She decided to dedicate a specific hour each evening after dinner to her artistic pursuit. No excuses, just that hour, every day, a sacred appointment with her nascent dream. The fourth riddle was a call to action. The journey begins with a single step, but the path is revealed through consistent walking. How will you mark your progress and celebrate the small victories along the way? This was perhaps the most challenging and the most liberating step. Alara bought a cheap sketchbook and a set of watercolors, a less intimidating medium than oils for a beginner. She started with simple color swatches, then moved to mixing colors, then to painting basic shapes. Each evening she'd spend her dedicated hour, sometimes feeling clumsy, sometimes frustrated, but always, always showing up. She kept a small journal, not just to track what she learned, but to note her feelings, her observations, her small breakthroughs. The first time she successfully mixed a shade of mist gray that felt truly authentic to her city, she drew a tiny, triumphant star next to the entry. The first time she managed to render a convincing shadow, she allowed herself a rare, quiet smile. These weren't grand celebrations, but they were deeply felt, internal acknowledgments of her own tenacity. The final riddle, the one that truly solidified the transformation, read, "The lone wolf may hunt, but the pack thrives. Who will witness your journey and hold you to the path you have chosen?" This was the hardest for Alara, a woman accustomed to the quiet solitude of her work, but the book insisted on it. It spoke of the subtle magic of shared intention, the reinforcing power of a supportive gaze. After much deliberation, she decided to confide in her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Gable, a woman with a twinkle in her eye and a penchant for baking excellent lemon tarts. Alara showed Mrs. Gable her sketchbook, hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence. Mrs. Gable, far from being critical, offered gentle encouragement, marveling at Alara's dedication. Sometimes, when Alara felt her resolve wavering, the thought of Mrs. Gable's kind smile, her expectant gaze, was enough to pull her back to her easel. She even joined a small, online forum for beginner artists, a community of fellow travelers, all fumbling and growing together. The shared experience, the gentle accountability, created a subtle yet powerful web of support. Alara embarked on her incubation. The first few days were awkward. Her hands felt clumsy, her lines uncertain, but she remembered the book's promise. This initial period was about laying the groundwork, not achieving perfection. She focused on the process, on showing up, on the quiet joy of learning. The mist outside her window seemed to gain new depth, new shades of gray and lavender, as she began to truly see it. The intricate patterns of light and shadow on the library shelves became a study in form. Her world, once seen through frosted glass, began to sharpen, to reveal its hidden textures and colors. She spent her dedicated hour each evening, sometimes longer, immersed in the world of paint. She wasn't just learning techniques, she was learning to observe, to translate, to feel the world around her with a new intensity. The book's concept of incubation, this concentrated burst of learning, wasn't just about accumulating skills. It was about shifting her perspective, about unlocking a dormant part of herself. And then, one evening, as the silver mist swirled outside her window, illuminated by the soft glow of her desk lamp, Alara realized something profound. It wasn't about the grand masterpiece she would eventually create. It was about the act of creating itself, the journey of discovery, the quiet satisfaction of bringing something new into being. She looked at her latest small painting, a simple study of a mist-shrouded street lamp, its light a warm, blurry halo. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. And in its imperfections, she saw the promise of countless future strokes, a lifetime of learning and expression. The incubation period had come to an end. It hadn't transformed her into a master painter, but it had done something far more significant. It had transformed her relationship with her dream. The insurmountable mountain now felt like a series of gentle hills, each inviting her to ascend. The delicate bird in the cage had spread its wings, not yet soaring, but fluttering with a newfound strength, ready to take flight. She had not only acquired a foundational skill, she had cultivated a habit of learning, a practice of showing up, a belief in her own capacity for growth. She had discovered that the most profound transformations often begin not with a monumental leap, but with a series of deliberate, focused steps, taken consistently, over a surprisingly brief but intense period. If you've enjoyed this episode, please visit our website at deszicakes.com. Thanks for joining me on Unfiltered Reflection. Until next time, be kind to yourself, keep exploring, and remember, you are worthy, you are seen, and you are loved. And sometimes all it takes is a focused, concentrated period of effort, let's say, about 20 hours to unlock a surprising level of proficiency and ignite a lifelong passion.